Hello, dear students. Welcome to I-Fal. My name is Teacher Nikki, and I am here again to give you another video lesson. So these lessons will actually help you enhance and make your English communication skills much better. All right? So for today's video, let's talk about the discussion on active and passive voices. All right? So let's go ahead and start the lesson. So to begin with, let's understand and define the meaning of active and passive voices. Let's also give their usages. Now, when we talk about the active voice, now this is what we call your regular sentence construction, because this active voice actually means you are focusing on the doer of the action. So your subject in the sentence is actually the doer of the action. So let's see this one. Your subject, verb, and object. Now, your subject here is considered the doer of the action. Okay? Now, let's have some example sentences for the active voice. So first, John ate the pizza. Now let's focus on John. So John is actually the one who did the action ate. So in this case, we consider this sentence as an active voice sentence. Another one, the dog bit the kid. So in this case, the dog did the action bit. Okay? Another one, she cleans her room. So who does the action? It's she. So in this case, as you observe, all of the doer of the actions are actually in the subject position. So that's when we use the active voice. So let's now talk about the passive voice. So when we talk about the passive voice, this is when we want to emphasize on the object of the verb rather than the subject of the sentence. What does it mean? So there are some considerations when we use the passive voice. Number one, it is not important to mention who does or did the action. So it means the doer of the action is not important to mention. Second one, we use the passive voice if we do not know who the doer of the action is. So if it's anonymous or if it's someone unknown, then we can use the passive voice. So let's take a look at some example sentences using the passive voice. First, the pizza was eaten by John. So as you can see here, I want to focus on the pizza rather than John. So in this case, I would use the passive voice. Next, the bridge was built. Okay, so in this case, I don't know who built the bridge. So I'd rather use the passive voice than the active voice. Okay, so next example. The room was cleaned by Lisa. So in this case, I want to focus on the room, not on Lisa. Okay? So now let's talk about one of the confusions on active and passive voices. Now the question is, can we all make sentences active to passive or vice versa? Well, the answer is no. Okay? Not all sentences can be made passive. So how do we know if we can make or we can use the passive form in a sentence? Now, one of the things that you have to consider, or important thing that you have to consider when thinking of active and passive voice, is the kinds of verbs that you use. Now, let's see more of it. So in active and passive voice, we have to consider the verb. So there are two types of verbs that we have to know. So we have the transitive verb and the intransitive verbs. Now let's define what is transitive and intransitive verbs. So for transitive verbs, these are the verbs that take an object after them. So what does it mean? So there is a receiver of the action. So like for example, John ate the pizza. So the verb ate or eat takes the object pizza because what was eaten? It was the pizza, right? Another, she cleaned the room. So our verb here is clean, right? So what is the object of clean? So that is the room, okay? Now, if you want to know if this is an object of the verb, you have to ask the questions what or who, okay? So if after the verb is what or who, then we consider that as object of the verb, okay? Now, we can only make a sentence passive if we are using a transitive verb, all right? There should always be an object after the verb. So the next type of verb that we are going to talk about is the intransitive verb. Now, how do you know if the verb is intransitive? So it means that these are the verbs that do not take any object after them. So when you ask the question, is it what or who? If it does not answer what or who, then that is not an object of the verb. So it means your verb is intransitive. So there are just some verbs that are purely intransitive verbs. So remember, when you ask the question, what or who, if it does not answer that, then it is an intransitive verb. So let's take a look at some examples. The accident happened yesterday. So your verb happened does not have any object. So it is considered as intransitive verb. So what is the word after happened? It's yesterday. So it does not answer the questions what or who. Okay? Another thing here is he sleeps in his room. So your verb sleep does not have any object. So because it does not answer the question what or who. So in this case, sleep is kind of intransitive verb. Okay? Now please always remember, if your verb is intransitive, we cannot make it passive voice. All right? So now let's take a look at some example sentences that we can convert from active to passive. So first example is, John ate the pizza. Can you think about how we can change this active voice into passive voice? Okay, let me give you some time. All right, so let's make the passive voice of this sentence. The pizza was eaten by John. Okay, so your subject here is the object. Pizza was eaten by John. All right. She cleans her room every day. Can you please think on how to make this sentence passive? All right. Okay, let's make the passive sentence. So, the room is cleaned by her every day. Again, the room is cleaned by her every day. All right? So please pay attention on how we made the passive sentences. So when understanding whether the sentence is an active voice or a passive voice, remember that your active sentences usually has the subject as the doer, and this is the focus of your sentence, the doer of the action. Then we use the passive voice if the doer of the action is not important to mention or the doer is unknown. So we basically put the focus on the object of the verb, okay? Another thing that you have to understand is you have to consider the type of verb that you have in the sentence. So we can only make an active sentence passive if the verb is transitive verb. If it's intransitive, then we cannot make it passive voice. All right? So there will be a second part with this discussion. So wherein we will be talking about more of the sentence constructions of your passive voice. Okay? So now I just want you to please pay more attention to the usages first so we can master it more. All right? So I know that it can be challenging to understand your active and passive voices, but don't you worry. There are equipped teachers who are knowledgeable about this topic. So I encourage you to please subscribe more to our classes for you to have a better understanding of the active and the passive voice. Okay? So I would also encourage you to visit our website, which I will flash on the next slide. So once again, this is Teacher Nikki. Thank you so much for listening to me. So please keep on practicing more. Encourage yourself to learn more about these grammar lessons. So please visit the website that I will show you on the next screen. So thank you so much. Good luck and please keep on practicing more. So see you on the second part of active and passive voice. Bye.